Imagine waking up to find your entire fortune, $20 million stolen. Not by strangers, but by the people you loved most. The ones who called you dad, grandpa, family. What if every hug, every smile, every promise was a lie? A knife sharpened to carve out your legacy. Picture the scalding burn of betrayal, hotter than the coffee thrown in your face, as your own daughter sneers. "You're nothing without us." My name is Henry Caldwell, and this is the story of how my family turned my trust into a heist, draining millions while I fought to survive. How far would you go to reclaim your life when the ones you loved most become your worst enemies? Stick with RevengeX to find out, subscribe, like, and share for the truth that'll leave you speechless. Welcome to RevengeX, where electrifying stories of betrayal and triumph set your soul ablaze. We're thrilled to have you join our community of viewers who celebrate unyielding resilience and fierce courage. Hit that subscribe button to never miss a heart-pounding tale. And it'd be incredible if you smashed the like button, shared this video, or dropped a comment with the time and city or country you're watching from. Your likes, shares, and heartfelt comments are the greatest spiritual gift, the fuel that keeps this channel burning bright. Now, buckle up for a story that'll hit you right in the feels. Let's dive in. I'm Henry Caldwell, a 68-year-old retired investment banker from Chicago, a man who built a fortune from nothing, brick by brick, through decades of grit and sacrifice. My name used to mean something in this city boardrooms, fell silent when I walked in, and my handshake was worth more than most contracts. I thought my wealth was my legacy, a gift to my family, a shield for my daughter, Emily, and her son, Jake. I thought love was enough to keep us bound. But if I'd known that one scalding cup of coffee could torch 40 years of trust, burn away millions of dollars, and shred every ounce of my dignity, I'd have locked my heart tighter than my vault. It was a crisp October morning in Emily's sleek Lincoln Park brownstone, the kind of place I'd paid for with a $7 million wire transfer when she swore she'd make it her own. The kitchen gleamed with marble countertops and a sub-zero fridge, but the air was thick with something sour. I sat at the breakfast bar, cradling a mug of coffee too bitter, the way Emily's husband, Derek, liked it. Derek, a slick real estate broker with a smile sharper than a switchblade, was nowhere to be seen, probably out charming another client into a bad deal. My grandson Jake, 19 and glued to his phone, slouched across from me. Emily bustled at the stove, her movements sharp, like she was slicing the air itself. "Grandpa," Jake said, not looking up from his screen, his voice lazy, like he was ordering a burger. "Can I borrow your black card again? There's this crypto trading rig I need. It's only $50,000. $50,000. The number landed like a slap. I didn't blink. "No," I said, calm but firm, expecting a shrug, maybe a pout. What I didn't expect was the storm that followed. Emily froze, her spatula hovering over the pan. The silence stretched, heavy, like the moment before a car crash. Then, with a flick of her wrist, she grabbed my mug and flung it at me. Scalding coffee splashed across my chest, soaking my cashmere sweater, burning through to my skin. I gasped, lurching back, the mug shattering on the hardwood floor. Shards skittered like broken promises. My chest throbbed, but the real pain was, in Emily's eyes, cold, calculating, no trace of the girl I'd raised. "If you're going to be a selfish old man," she hissed, arms crossed like a CEO firing an intern, "then maybe you don't belong here. Hand over the card or pack your bags, Dad. We're not your personal ATM." The word selfish cut deeper than the burn. Selfish? I'd funneled $10 million into her trust fund, paid off Derek's gambling debts, $200,000 last year alone, and covered Jake's tuition at a private college he barely attended. I'd been living in their guest suite since my heart surgery 6 months ago, grateful for their help, blind to the ropes they'd tied around me. Now, standing there, dripping coffee, my skin raw and my pride in tatters, I saw it. This wasn't a family. This was a heist. Jake didn't even look up, just tapped his phone, probably buying virtual coins with my money already. Derek sauntered in then, smirking, his Rolex glinting bought with my platinum card, no doubt. "What's the drama now, Henry?" he said, like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "Just give the kid what he wants. You've got millions. What's 50 grand? His casual cruelty stung worse than Emily's betrayal. I'd trusted him, invited him to my country club, vouched for him with my old partners. And here he was, grinning like a shark smelling blood. My hands shook as I grabbed a dish towel, wiping the coffee from my chest. The burn was nothing compared to the fire in my gut, the realization that I wasn't their father, their patriarch. I was their mark. 10 million, I said, voice low, trembling with rage. I've given you 10 million, Emily. I paid for this house, your cars, Jake's gadgets, and you call me selfish? Her lips curled into a sneer. You're sitting on a fortune, Dad. Why hoard it? You're not taking it to the grave. That's when Margaret, my oldest friend and former assistant, stepped into the kitchen. She'd been staying over, helping me sort through old financial records. Her eyes widened at the scene, but her voice stayed steady. Henry, you okay? She asked, glaring at Emily. Margaret, loyal to a fault, had warned me about Emily's spending years ago, but I'd brushed her off, blinded by love. Now, her presence was a lifeline. Emily spun on her. Stay out of this, Margaret. This is family business. But Margaret didn't flinch. Family doesn't throw coffee at a man who gave them everything, she snapped. Derek laughed, cold and sharp. Oh, please. He's lucky we let him stay here after his surgery. Without us, he'd be in a nursing home, drooling into his oatmeal. The room spun. My heart, still fragile from surgery, pounded in my ears. I'd been their bank, their safety net, their fool. And now, a new betrayal hit like a freight train. I remembered the emergency fund I'd set up for Emily, $5 million, accessible only with my approval. Last week, she'd asked me to sign some routine papers while I was groggy on pain meds. I hadn't read them. God help me, I hadn't read them. Emily, I said, voice breaking, did you forge my signature on the fund? Her eyes flickered, not guilt, but panic. Derek stepped closer, his smirk gone. Don't start throwing accusations, old man. You'll regret it. Jake finally looked up, his face pale, like he knew the game was unraveling. Margaret grabbed my arm. Henry, we need to leave. Now. I didn't argue. My chest burned, my heart ached, but something else stirred a spark of the man who'd built an empire. I wasn't broken yet. I'm done, I said, staring at Emily. You want me gone? I'll go. But you'll regret this more than I ever will. I turned, Margaret at my side, and walked out of that kitchen, leaving the shattered mug and my shattered trust behind. As we reached the door, Emily shouted, You leave! You're cut off! No more money, no more house! Her voice cracked, but I didn't turn back. The second shock came when I checked my phone in the car. A bank alert. A withdrawal of $1 million from my primary account, processed an hour ago. Emily's name was on the transaction. My daughter, my flesh and blood, had stolen from me while I sat in her kitchen, burning. Margaret drove, her hands steady on the wheel. We'll fix this, Henry, she said. I've got a lawyer friend, Tom Reynolds. He's honest, sharp. He'll bury them. But as the city blurred past, my mind churned. How had I let this happen? How had I missed the signs, Emily's help with my accounts, Derek's sly comments about my will, Jake's endless demands? I'd loved them so fiercely I'd ignored the knives they held. Now, with my fortune bleeding and my heart in pieces, I knew. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a war. And I wasn't surrendering. The air in Margaret's sedan was heavy, not with the crisp Chicago autumn, but with the weight of a truth I hadn't dared face until now. My chest still stung from the coffee, the skin under my sweater raw and pulsing. But it was nothing compared to the ache in my soul, a jagged wound carved by the people I'd loved most. Emily's sneer, Derek's mocking grin, Jake's indifferent stare, they played on a loop in my mind, each image slicing deeper than the last. I stared out the window as Lakeshore Drive blurred past, the glittering skyline mocking me with its permanence. I'd built half of it, or so I used to brag at charity galas, but now I felt like a tenant in my own life, evicted by my own blood. Margaret's voice broke the silence, steady as always. Henry, you're not alone in this. We're going to Tom's office. He's already pulling your financial records. Tom Reynolds, the lawyer she'd mentioned, was a bulldog in a suit, a man who'd once saved my firm from a hostile takeover. Loyal, sharp, the kind of guy who'd rather die than betray a friend. I nodded, but my thoughts were elsewhere, spiraling into the abyss of my own naivety. How had I let Emily burrow so deep into my accounts, my trust, my life? I'd given her everything, millions, a mansion, a future, because I thought that's what fathers did. I thought love meant handing over the keys to your kingdom. Now, I saw it for what it was, a slow, deliberate theft, wrapped in hugs and fake tears. My phone buzzed again, another bank alert. Another $1 million drained from a secondary account, this one labeled Jake's college fund. A bitter laugh escaped me. College? Jake spent his days in a haze of Red Bull and gaming, flunking out of Northwestern while I paid the bills. Margaret glanced at me, her eyes soft but fierce. They're desperate, she said. They know you're waking up. Desperate? They weren't desperate. They were vultures, picking at my fortune like it was roadkill. And I'd let them, too weak from surgery, too blinded by love, to see the knives they sharpened behind my back. We pulled into Tom's office in the Loop, a sleek high-rise that screamed old money. But before we could step out, another shock hit a text from my old accountant, Vince Moretti, a slimy opportunist who'd always lingered too close to Emily's circle. Henry, heard you're causing a scene. Emily says you're losing it. Call me before you do something stupid. Losing it? The gall of that weasel, who I'd caught skimming fees years ago but spared because Emily begged me to. Another betrayal. Another layer of rot. I showed Margaret the text, and her jaw tightened. Vince is in on it, she said. I'd bet my pension he's been funneling your money to them. Inside, Tom was waiting, his office a fortress of mahogany and law books. But the real anchor was Sarah, his paralegal, a quiet woman with a steel-trap mind who'd already printed out my bank statements. She slid them across the desk, her expression grim. Henry, they've been bleeding you dry. $5 million in withdrawals over 6 months. Unexplained transfers, forged signatures, even a shell company in Derek's name. 5 million. The number hit like a sledgehammer. I'd been in the hospital, recovering from a triple bypass, when Emily offered to manage my accounts. I trusted her, my only daughter, the girl I'd carried on my shoulders at Navy Pier, and she'd turned my trust into a blank check. Tom leaned forward, his voice calm but lethal. We can freeze the accounts, file for financial abuse. But Henry, this is elder fraud, plain and simple. Emily, Derek, maybe even Vince, they could face jail time. Jail? The word hung there, heavy as a guillotine. I wanted to scream, to demand justice, but a part of me, the father who'd read Emily bedtime stories, choked on the thought. Could I send my daughter to prison? Could I live with myself if I didn't? My hands trembled, and I pressed them against the desk, trying to anchor myself. Margaret put a hand on my shoulder. You don't have to decide now, she said, but you have to protect yourself. Then came the next blow. Sarah pulled up an email, forwarded from my bank's fraud department. Emily had tried to transfer another $2 million that morning, right after I'd left, using a power of attorney I never signed. The bank flagged it, thank God, but the audacity burned. She didn't even wait for the coffee to dry, I muttered, my voice cracking. Tom's eyes narrowed. This is a pattern, Henry. They've been planning this for years. Years. The word clawed at me. Had every hug, every I love you, Dad, been a lie? Had they been counting my money while I counted my blessings? Outside, my phone lit up again, Emily's name on the screen. I hesitated, my thumb hovering. Margaret shook her head. Don't give her the stage, Henry. But I couldn't help it, I answered, putting it on speaker. Her voice was venom. Pure South Side Street venom, the kind you hear in dive bars after midnight. You think you can just walk out, old man. You're nothing without us. You'd be rotting in some hospice if I didn't wipe your ass after surgery. Hand over the damn card, or I'll make sure every rich buddy you've got knows you're a senile has-been. The words hit like bullets, each one tearing through the father I'd been. Senile. Nothing. The daughter I'd raised, calling me trash. Before I could respond, Derek's voice cut in, oily and cruel. You're embarrassing yourself, Henry. What's next? Crying to the press? Billionaire boohoo? My kid took my money? Pathetic. I froze, the room tilting. Margaret snatched the phone. You're done, Emily. You and your sleazeball husband. Henry's not your piggy bank anymore. She hung up, but the echo of their laughter lingered, mocking me. I sank into the chair, my heart pounding, not from anger, but from grief. I'd given them everything, my wealth, my trust, my love, and they'd spit it back in my face. But worse was the voice in my head, the one that whispered, I'd let this happen. I'd been too soft, too eager to play the doting dad, too quick to sign papers without reading. I'd built a fortune with steel nerves, yet I'd let my daughter dismantle me with a smile. The shame was a living thing, coiling in my gut, whispering that I deserved this for being so damn blind. Sarah slid another document across the desk, a title deed. My house, the Lincoln Park brownstone, still in my name. Emily had convinced me to transfer it temporarily for tax purposes during my recovery. Another lie. You own it, Henry, Sarah said. They're squatting in your castle. The realization sparked something, anger, yes, but also resolve. I wasn't their victim, not anymore. Tom stood, his voice like a general's. We file today. Freeze the accounts, flag the forgeries, and start an elder abuse case. You ready? I looked at Margaret, her eyes fierce with loyalty, then at Sarah, her quiet strength a reminder that I wasn't alone. I nodded. Do it. As I signed the first form, another alert pinged $3 million, wired to an offshore account in Derek's name, blocked by the bank. They weren't just stealing, they were running. But I wasn't running anymore, I was fighting. And this time, I'd locked the vault myself. The Chicago skyline faded into dusk as Margaret drove us away from Tom's office, the weight of signed papers heavy in my lap. My heart, still fragile from surgery, thudded unevenly. But it wasn't the pain in my chest that kept me awake. It was the betrayal, a poison seeping deeper with every new revelation. Emily's voice, dripping with venom, echoed in my head her street-sharp insults, calling me a senile has-been, like I was some washed-up hustler she'd outsmarted. Derek's laughter, Jake's indifference, Vince's slimy text. They weren't just family. They were a syndicate, and I'd been their mark for years. I gripped the armrest, my knuckles white, fighting the urge to scream or weep. I'd built a fortune worth $20 million, and they'd treated it like pocket change, treated me like a ATM they could kick when it jammed. Margaret glanced at me, her eyes soft but unyielding. You did the right thing, Henry. Filing those papers? That's you taking back your life. I wanted to believe her, but my mind was a war zone, torn between the father who'd cradled Emily during thunderstorms and the man staring down the truth. My daughter had sold me out for millions. The house, my house, was still mine. But every memory in it, Thanksgiving dinners, Jake's first steps was tainted now, coated in the grime of their greed. The shame burned hotter than the coffee ever did. How had I been so blind, so weak, to let love cloud my judgment? We pulled into a quiet diner on the edge of Wicker Park, a greasy spoon where nobody knew my name. Margaret insisted we stop, sensing I needed air before the next step. Inside, the smell of bacon and stale coffee grounded me. A slice of Chicago that felt real, not like the polished betrayal of Emily's marble kitchen. As we slid into a booth, my phone lit up again, a voicemail from Derek. I hesitated, my thumb trembling, but curiosity won. I played it, keeping the volume low. His voice slithered through, pure Southside swagger. Yo, Henry, you think you're slick, huh? Run into your fancy lawyer? You're a joke, old man. Keep this up, and we'll tell the whole damn city you're losing it dementia, Alzheimer's, the works. Nobody's gonna believe a fossil like you over us. The threat landed like a punch, but what gutted me was the next voice, Jake's, lazy and cruel. Yeah, Grandpa, just give it up. You're done. I dropped the phone, my hands shaking. Jake, the kid I'd taken to Cubs games, who'd cried in my arms when his dog died, was calling me done. Another layer of betrayal peeled back, raw and bleeding. I'd paid for his braces, his summer camps, his dreams, and now he was spitting on my grave before I was even in it. Margaret reached across the table, her hand steady on mine. They're scared, Henry. They know you're not folding. But I wasn't so sure. Inside, I was fracturing. Part of me wanted to call Emily, to beg for an explanation, to hear her say it was a mistake. The other part, the one that had built an empire from nothing, wanted to burn their world down. Then came the next shock. Sarah texted from Tom's office. Henry, we found a second shell company. Emily's name's on it. Another $3 million funneled out last month. $3 million. The number was a knife, twisting deeper. I pictured Emily signing those papers, her manicured nails tapping the desk, smirking as she stole from the man who'd given her everything. But the real gut punch was the date last month, when she'd sat by my hospital bed, holding my hand, promising to take care of everything. I'd thought she meant my recovery. She meant my ruin. The diner door swung open, and in walked Carla, a real estate agent Tom had called in, a no-nonsense woman with a clipboard and a stare that could cut glass. She was our new ally, here to assess the brownstone for sale. But trailing her was another figure, Vince Moretti, the accountant, his greasy smile like a warning sign. My stomach churned. He wasn't supposed to be here. Henry, he drawled, sliding into the booth uninvited. Heard you're stirring up trouble. Emily's real upset, man. Why you gotta make this messy? His tone was all fake concern, but his eyes were cold, calculating, like a bookie sizing up a bad bet. Margaret bristled. Get out, Vince. You're not part of this. But he leaned closer, his voice dropping to a street, low hiss. You think you can just cut us out, Henry? You're a dinosaur, man. Emily's got your accounts on lock, and we've got friends who'll make sure you don't see a dime. The threat was a spark to my rage, but before I could speak, Carla stepped in, her voice sharp as a blade. Back off, Moretti. I've seen the deeds. That house is Henry's, and you're all squatting like roaches. Vince's smirk faltered, and he slunk out, but not before tossing a final jab. You'll regret this, old man. Sleep tight. My heart pounded, not just from anger, but from the crushing weight of realization. Vince wasn't just a bystander, he was in deep, probably skimming millions alongside Emily and Derek. The web of betrayal was thicker than I'd imagined. A network of lies spun while I was doped up on painkillers, trusting my family to protect me. I wanted to scream, to smash the diner table, but instead, I sat frozen, my mind a storm of guilt and fury. I'd let them in, given them access, power, love, and they'd turned it into a weapon. The father in me wept for the daughter I'd lost, but the man in me, the one who'd outsmarted Wall Street sharks, was waking up. Carla sat down, her clipboard a shield. "Henry, we can list the house tomorrow. It's yours. Legally airtight. They can't touch it." Her words were a lifeline, but they didn't quiet the war inside me. Selling the house meant severing the last tie to Emily, to the life I'd built for her. It meant admitting she wasn't my daughter anymore, she was my enemy. My hands trembled as I sipped my coffee, the bitter taste mirroring my thoughts. Could I do this? Could I burn the bridge I'd spent decades building? Then, another blow, a call from Tom. "Henry, we just caught a live transfer attempt. $2 million routed to an offshore account in Jake's name. We blocked it, but Emily's escalating." "Jake? My grandson, not even 20, trying to steal millions while I sat here, fighting to breathe." The betrayal was a physical thing now, a weight crushing my chest. I pictured his bored eyes, his entitled slouch, and realized he'd never loved me, just my money. Margaret squeezed my hand. "You're stronger than this, Henry. You've faced worse." But had I? I'd battled boardrooms, not blood. I'd lost deals, not daughters. Yet as I looked at her, at Carla's steely resolve, I felt a spark ignite. I wasn't done. "List the house," I said, my voice steady for the first time. "And tell Tom to file charges. All of them." The words felt like a guillotine dropping, final and freeing. Emily, Derek, Jake, Vince, they'd gambled on my silence, my love. They'd lost. I wasn't just walking away. I was taking back my name, my life, my fight. And this time, I'd lock the door behind me. The diner's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a harsh glow on the cracked vinyl booth where I sat, my hands still trembling from the weight of my decision. The Chicago night pressed against the windows, cold and unforgiving, mirroring the storm inside me. I just told Carla to list the house, told Tom to file charges, but the words felt like they belonged to someone else, a man who wasn't drowning in the wreckage of his daughter's betrayal. Emily's venomous words, Derek's mocking laugh, Jake's cold dismissal, and Vince's slimy threats, they clawed at me, each one a fresh cut on a heart already battered by surgery and grief. I'd given them $20 million, a lifetime of love, and they'd turned me into their personal ATM, draining my accounts while I lay in a hospital bed, trusting them to care. Now, I was awake, and the truth was a blade. My family didn't love me. They loved my money. Margaret sat across from me, her eyes scanning my face like she could see the war raging inside. "You're doing this, Henry," she said, her voice a quiet anchor. "You're not their victim anymore." But victim or not, I felt hollow, like the skyscrapers I'd financed impressive on the outside, empty within. Every memory of Emily, her first bike, her prom night, her tears when I walked her down the aisle, was poisoned now, tainted by the realization that she'd been planning this heist for years. The father in me wanted to curl up and mourn, to call her and beg for the daughter I thought I knew. The fighter in me, the one who'd outsmarted Wall Street, wanted to tear their world apart. Carla slid a contract across the table, her pen tapping with the precision of a metronome. "Sign here, Henry. The house goes on the market tomorrow. $7 million, minimum. They'll be out by the end of the week." Her words were a lifeline, but they also burned. Selling the brownstone meant erasing the last physical tie to Emily, to the life I'd built for her. It meant admitting she'd never been mine. Not really. My hand hovered over the paper, shaking, as my mind screamed, could I do this? Could I sever my own daughter? But then my phone buzzed a new email from Sarah, Tom's paralegal. "Henry, we found a hidden trust fund in Derek's name. $4 million, siphoned from your retirement account. Emily signed off on it last week. $4 million. The betrayal hit like a freight train, knocking the air from my lungs. Last week, when she'd brought me soup smiling, saying, "Get better, Dad," she wasn't nursing me. She was robbing me blind. I signed the contract, my signature jagged but final. Carla nodded, but before she could speak, the diner door slammed open, and in stormed Lena, Emily's best friend since college, a loudmouth influencer with a fake tan and faker tears. She was another cog in their machine, always at the house, snapping selfies with my wine collection. "Henry, what the hell?" she barked, her voice pure Chicago street, all swagger and scorn. You're screwing over Emily? You're gonna sell her damn house? You're a greedy old bastard, hoarding your cash while she's struggling. Struggling? The word was a slap. Emily. Struggling. With my $7 million brownstone and my millions in her accounts. I stood, my knees weak, but my voice steady. Lena, get out before I call the cops. Margaret rose, her petite frame radiating fury. You heard him. Scram. But Lena laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. You're done, Henry. Emily's got your number. Keep this up, and we'll drag your name through the mud, tell the whole city you're a paranoid geezer who can't handle his own checkbook. The threat was a spark to my rage, but before I could fire back, Carla stepped between us, her clipboard raised like a shield. Lena, you're trespassing on a legal meeting. Leave, or I'll have security haul you out like the trash you are. Lena's eyes widened, but she backed off, muttering, You'll pay for this, old man, before storming out. The diner fell silent, the other patrons staring. But I didn't care. My heart pounded, not just from the confrontation, but from a new, colder realization. Emily had sent Lena. This wasn't random. It was coordinated. A desperate attempt to bully me back into submission. And then, another shock. My phone pinged with a text from Jake, his words dripping with entitled venom. Grandpa, you're pathetic. Selling the house? I'll make sure everyone knows you're a selfish prick. Jake, my grandson, who I'd taught to fish at Lake Michigan, was now wielding my love like a weapon. The pain was physical, a vice around my chest, squeezing tighter with every betrayal. I'd given him everything, cars, tuition, dreams, and he'd sold me out for a crypto rig. Margaret grabbed my hand, her touch grounding me. They're circling, Henry, but they're scared. You're taking back what's yours. Her words were true, but they didn't quiet the storm inside. I was a man divided. Half of me wanted to collapse, to mourn the family I'd lost. The other half wanted to fight, to reclaim the empire they'd tried to steal. I'd built my life on trust, on love, and they'd turned it into a battlefield. The shame was a living thing, whispering that I'd let this happen, that I'd been too soft, too blind to see the vultures circling. Carla's phone buzzed, and she frowned. Tom just called. They found another account, $6 million, drained into a Cayman Islands trust. Emily's fingerprints are all over it, but Vince signed the paperwork. $6 million. The number was a gut punch. Another layer of betrayal. Vince, the accountant I'd trusted, was neck deep in their scheme, probably pocketing a cut while Emily played the dutiful daughter. I pictured her at my bedside, her fake tears, her promises to handle everything. I'd thought she was my savior. She was my thief. A new figure approached our booth, Detective Mike Sullivan, a grizzled cop Tom had looped in, his badge glinting under the diner lights. He was our new ally, a straight shooter who'd seen too many families torn apart by greed. Henry, he said, his voice low, we're building a case. Elder fraud, forgery, maybe racketeering, but you need to stay strong. They're going to come at you hard. His words were a warning, but also a spark. I wasn't just fighting for my money. I was fighting for my name, my dignity, my right to exist outside their control. As Mike sat down, another alert hit my phone, a social media post from Lena, already viral on X. Billionaire Henry Caldwell cuts off his own daughter, senile or just cruel. The post had a photo of me, frail in my hospital gown, stolen from Emily's phone. The humiliation burned, a public execution of my reputation. I wanted to hide, to disappear, but Mike's voice cut through. This is their last play, Henry. They're desperate. Let's hit back harder. I nodded, my resolve hardening. The father in me was dying, but the fighter was alive, roaring. Freeze everything, I said. Accounts, assets, all of it. And tell Tom to add Lena to the case. As I spoke, I felt the weight lift, not gone, but lighter. Emily, Derek, Jake, Vince, Lena. They'd gambled on my silence, my love, my weakness. They'd miscalculated. I wasn't just reclaiming my money. I was reclaiming me. And this time I'd bolt the vault shut. The Chicago night wrapped around us like a shroud as Margaret drove us away from the diner, the city's neon lights flickering like false promises. My heart was a bruised thing, pounding unevenly, each beat a reminder of the empire I'd built and the family that had torn it down. Emily's betrayal, $4 million siphoned, $6 million more funneled offshore, was a wound that bled deeper than the coffee burns still stinging my chest. Jake's cruel text, Lena's viral post, Vince's slimy threats, Derek's mocking laughter. They were a chorus of vipers, each bite more venomous than the last. I'd given them everything, $20 million, a Lincoln Park brownstone, a lifetime of love, and they'd repaid me with lies, theft, and public humiliation. I sat in the passenger seat, clutching the signed contract to sell the house, my fingers tracing the ink as if it could anchor me against the storm inside. Margaret's voice cut through the silence, soft but resolute. "We're going to a safe place, Henry, somewhere they can't touch you." Her words were a lifeline, but they didn't quiet the war in my head. I was a man split in two. The father who'd once braided Emily's hair, who'd cheered at Jake's Little League games, and the warrior who now saw them for what they were, thieves who'd plundered my trust. The shame was a living thing, coiling tighter with every mile, whispering that I'd invited this betrayal by being too generous, too blind, too desperate to be loved. I'd handed Emily the keys to my fortune, thinking it was love, and she'd used them to lock me out of my own life. We pulled up to a discreet townhouse in Evanston, a quiet suburb north of the city where Tom's friend, Dr. Clara Bennett, waited. Clara, a retired therapist who'd counseled CEOs through meltdowns, was our new ally, her warm eyes and steady presence, a balm to my frayed nerves. She opened the door, ushering us into a cozy living room that smelled of lavender and old books, a stark contrast to the cold marble of Emily's kitchen. "Henry," she said, her voice like a hearth fire, "you're safe here. No one knows where you are." Safe. The word felt foreign, like a language I'd forgotten. For months, I'd been a prisoner in my daughter's house, my accounts drained, my dignity scorched. Now in this quiet sanctuary, I felt the first flicker of freedom and the crushing weight of what it cost. As I sank into an armchair, my phone buzzed again, a video call from Emily. My thumb hovered, the old instinct to answer warring with the new resolve to shut her out. Clara nodded gently. "You don't have to face her yet, Henry." But I did. I needed to see her face, to know if there was any trace of the daughter I'd loved. I accepted the call, and Emily's face filled the screen, her eyes blazing with Chicago street fury. "You think you can hide, you old prick?" she spat, her voice raw and vicious. "Selling my house? Freezing my money? You're a pathetic has-been, Dad, clutching your billions like a damn dragon. You'll be sorry when I'm done with you." Her words were a blade, slicing through the last threads of hope I'd clung to. Behind her, Derek leaned into the frame, his grin pure venom. "Keep running, Henry. We've got lawyers, too. You're gonna crash and burn, you senile bastard." The screen went black as I ended the call, my hands shaking so hard I nearly dropped the phone. Clara knelt beside me, her voice steady. "That's not your daughter, Henry. That's a mask." But it wasn't just a mask, it was a betrayal so deep. It rewrote my past. Every memory of Emily, her laughter at our lake house, her tears when I paid for her wedding was a lie, a performance to keep me pliable. The pain was a physical thing, a stone in my chest, heavier than the heart surgery that had nearly killed me. I'd loved her so fiercely I'd ignored the signs, the emergency withdrawals, the forgotten bank statements, the way she'd isolated me from my old friends at the Union League Club. I'd been a fool, and the shame burned hotter than my anger. Then came the next shock, a text from Mike Sullivan, the detective. "Henry, we found a forged will. Your signature, dated 3 months ago, leaves everything to Emily and Jake. It's fake, but they filed it with a probate lawyer. A will. The betrayal was a sledgehammer, shattering what little faith I had left. They hadn't just stolen my money, they'd planned to erase me, to claim my entire fortune the moment I died." I pictured Emily at my bedside, her fake concern as she handed me water, all while plotting to bury me in a grave of her making. My breath caught, and Clara placed a hand on my arm. "You're not alone, Henry. We're building a fortress around you." But the fortress shook with another blow, an email from Sarah, forwarded from my bank. Another attempt to drain $7 million, this time through a crypto exchange linked to Jake. The transaction was blocked, but the audacity was a gut punch. Jake, barely out of high school, was laundering my money while I fought to breathe. I wanted to scream, to smash something, but instead I sat frozen, my mind a battlefield. The father in me mourned the boy who'd once called me hero. The fighter in me saw a thief who'd never loved me, only my wealth. The guilt was a tidal wave, drowning me in questions. Had I spoiled them? Had my millions made them monsters? Or had they always been waiting, biding their time until I was weak enough to rob? The door opened, and in walked Paul, Clara's neighbor and a retired FBI agent, his weathered face etched with quiet strength. He was another ally, brought in by Tom to tighten our defenses. "Henry," he said, his voice low, "we've got eyes on Emily's house. She's meeting with Vince and a shady lawyer from the South Side. They're planning to countersue, claim you're incompetent." Incompetent. The word was a knife, twisting deeper. They weren't just stealing, they were trying to erase my mind, my legacy, my name. I pictured Emily laughing with Vince, plotting to lock me in a conservatorship while they spent my fortune on yachts and private jets. The betrayal was a living thing, a beast gnawing at my soul. Are you enjoying the story so far? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Just drop a quick comment below to share how you feel. It only takes a few seconds, but your words give me the motivation and inspiration to make every chapter more thrilling and engaging. Go ahead, let me know what's on your mind. And now, let's dive back into the story. Paul handed me a folder, copies of my original will, my bank records, my deeds, all notarized, all untouchable. "You've got the upper hand," he said. "They don't know you've got us." His words sparked something, a flicker of the man who'd built skyscrapers, who'd stared down corporate sharks. I wasn't their prey anymore. I looked at Margaret, Clara, Paul. Their faces, a circle of loyalty I'd almost forgotten existed. "File everything," I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. "And tell Mike to dig deeper. I want every lie exposed." And, as they nodded, another alert hit, an X post from Derek, retweeted by Lena. "Henry Caldwell's losing it. Cutting off his own family? Sad." Attached was a doctored photo of me, confused and frail, stolen from my hospital stay. The public shaming was a final blow, a desperate attempt to break me. But it didn't. It ignited me. I wasn't just fighting for my money. I was fighting for my truth, my freedom, my right to be Henry Caldwell, not their puppet. I turned to Clara. "I'm ready," I said. "Let's end this." The room was quiet, but the air crackled with resolve. They'd gambled on my silence, my love, my weakness. They'd lost. I was done hiding. I was home. The Evanston townhouse was a quiet refuge, its soft lamplight and lavender scent, a stark contrast to the chaos I'd left behind in Chicago. Yet as I sat in Clara's living room, the weight of betrayal clung to me like damp fog. Emily's venomous video call, Jake's cruel text, Lena's viral post, Derek's mocking threats, and the forged will, each was a fresh wound, slicing through the love I'd poured into my family. $20 million, a $7 million brownstone, a lifetime of sacrifices. They'd taken it all. Not just my money, but my trust, my pride, my name. My heart, still fragile from surgery, thudded unevenly, each beat a reminder of the empire I'd built and the vultures who'd torn it apart. I gripped the armrest of the armchair, my knuckles white, fighting the urge to collapse under the grief of losing the daughter I'd once believed in. Clara sat across from me, her therapist's gaze gentle but piercing. "Henry, you're not just surviving this, you're rebuilding." Her words were a spark, but they didn't quiet the storm inside. I was a man fractured, half mourning the family I'd lost, half burning to reclaim what was mine. The shame was a relentless tide, whispering that I'd enabled this betrayal, that my generosity had bred their greed. I'd handed Emily my accounts, my trust, thinking it was love, only to find she'd been weaving a cage around me. Every memory, her giggles at our Michigan lake house, Jake's wide-eyed wonder at my old Rolex, was now a lie, a prop in their long con. Margaret poured me a cup of chamomile tea, her steady hands a reminder of the loyalty I'd almost forgotten existed. "We're with you, Henry," she said. "This is your home now, until you're ready." Home. The word stung, conjuring images of the brownstone I'd paid for, now a battleground. But before I could respond, my phone lit up a new voicemail from Vince, the slimy accountant who'd sunk his claws into my fortune. I played it, dreading the venom but needing to hear it. His voice slithered through, pure Chicago street grit. "Yo, Henry, you think you're hot shit, huh? Freezing accounts, selling the house? You're a washed-up old fool, man. We've got dirt on you, tax evasion, shady deals. Keep pushing, and we'll bury you in court, you senile bastard." The threat was a punch, but what gutted me was the follow-up. A second voice, Lena's, sharp and cruel. "Yeah, Henry, you're done. Everyone knows you're a greedy geezer hoarding your billions." I dropped the phone, my hands trembling. Lena, who danced at Emily's wedding on my dime, was now a soldier in their war against me. The betrayal was a blade, twisting deeper, cutting through the last remnants of hope that this was a misunderstanding. Clara leaned forward, her voice steady. "They're lashing out because they're losing control, Henry. You're stronger than they think." But was I? Inside, I was crumbling, torn between the father who wanted to forgive and the man who saw the truth. My family had planned this for years, exploiting my surgery, my trust, my love. The guilt was a weight, crushing me with questions. Had I taught Emily to value money over family? Had my wealth turned her into a monster? Then came the first shock, an email from Mike Sullivan, the detective. "Henry, We found a hidden loan, $8 million, taken against your brownstone, signed by Emily and Derek. The bank's investigating, but it's fraud. 8 million. The number was a sledgehammer, shattering any lingering doubt. They hadn't just stolen from my accounts, they'd mortgaged my home, my legacy, while I recovered in their guest room, believing their lies. I pictured Emily at the bank, her fake tears as she played the dutiful daughter, all while chaining my future to their greed. My breath hitched and Margaret grabbed my hand. They can't touch you here, Henry. We're building a wall. But the wall shook with another blow, a text from Sarah, Tom's paralegal. Henry, Jake tried to access your investment portfolio, $3 million in stocks, nearly liquidated. We stopped it, but he used your login. Jake, my grandson, who I'd bought his first laptop, was now hacking my accounts, treating my fortune like his personal piggy bank. The pain was physical, a vice around my chest, squeezing tighter with every betrayal. I wanted to scream, to demand why, but the answer was clear. They didn't love me. They loved my millions. The shame burned hotter than my anger, whispering that I'd failed as a father, that my wealth had corrupted them. The door opened, and in walked Rachel, Clara's sister and a former social worker. Her warm smile, a beacon in the storm. She was another ally, brought in to help me navigate the emotional wreckage. Henry, she said, setting a tray of cookies on the table, you're not alone. This place, these people, we're your family now. Her words were a lifeline, but they also stung, reminding me of the family I'd lost. As we talked, my phone buzzed again. An ex-post from Derek, retweeted by thousands. Henry Caldwell's abandoning his family. Senile billionaire cuts off his own blood. Attached was a video, grainy but devastating, of me in the hospital, weak and confused, stolen from Emily's phone. The public shaming was a gut punch, a calculated strike to paint me as the villain. Before I could process it, another shock hit a call from Tom. Henry, we found a fake charity in your name, $5 million diverted to it, controlled by Vince and Lena. It's a front for money laundering. $5 million. The betrayal was a tidal wave, drowning me in rage and grief. They'd used my name, my legacy, to build a criminal empire, all while I trusted them to care for me. I pictured Lena at my charity galas, sipping my champagne, plotting this scheme. My hands shook, and Rachel knelt beside me. You're not their victim, Henry. You're their reckoning. But the reckoning was tested by another blow, an email from a neighbor, Mrs. Larson, a busybody who'd always fawned over Emily. Henry, I heard you're selling the house. Emily's devastated. Why are you doing this to her? The message was a knife, twisting deeper. Even my neighbors, people I'd invited to barbecues, were turning against me, swayed by Emily's lies. The isolation was suffocating, a reminder of how thoroughly she'd cut me off from my world. Clara handed me a notebook. Write it down, Henry. Every moment, every betrayal, it's your armor. I nodded, my resolve hardening. The father in me was dying, but the fighter was alive, roaring. Tell Mike to add the charity to the case, I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. And tell Tom to prepare for a countersuit. They want a war, they'll get one. As Rachel and Margaret nodded, I felt the weight lift. Not gone, but lighter. Emily, Derek, Jake, Vince, Lena, they'd gambled on my silence, my love, my weakness. They'd miscalculated. I wasn't just finding refuge. I was building a fortress, and this time, I'd hold the keys. The Evanston townhouse felt like a fortress, but the war inside me raged on, fiercer than ever. The lavender-scented calm of Clara's living room couldn't silence the echoes of betrayal, Emily's venomous video call, Jake's cruel text, Lena's viral smear, Derek's mocking threats, Vince's slimy accusations, and the fake charity that had siphoned $5 million from my name. Each revelation was a fresh wound, carving deeper into a heart already battered by surgery and grief. I'd given them everything, $20 million, a $7 million brownstone, a lifetime of love, and they'd turned me into a pawn, stripping my accounts while I lay vulnerable, believing their lies. I sat at Clara's oak table, clutching the notebook where I'd scrawled every betrayal, my hands trembling, not with fear, but with a growing fire. I wasn't just fighting for my money. I was fighting for my soul. Rachel set a plate of warm scones before me, her social worker's empathy, a quiet strength. Henry, you're not just surviving this, you're rewriting your story. Her words stirred something, but they couldn't quiet the storm inside. I was torn, half of me, the father who'd taught Emily to ride a bike, who'd beamed at Jake's graduation, and half the warrior who saw them now as thieves who'd plundered my trust. The shame was a relentless shadow, whispering that I'd built this monster, that my wealth had turned love into greed. I'd given Emily access to my accounts, my life, thinking it was devotion, only to find she'd forged a prison around me. Every memory, her laughter at our 4th of July barbecues, Jake's awe at my vintage car collection was now a lie, a prop in their calculated heist. Margaret glanced at my notebook, her voice steady. "You're building a case, Henry. Every word here is a weapon." But before I could respond, my phone lit up a new email from Mike Sullivan, the detective. "Henry, we found a hidden insurance policy, $10 million, taken out in your name, with Emily as the beneficiary. It's fraudulent, signed during your hospital stay. 10 million. The betrayal was a sledgehammer, shattering the last fragments of hope I'd clung to. They hadn't just stolen my money, they'd bet on my death, plotting to cash in while I fought to breathe. I pictured Emily at my bedside, her fake tears as she adjusted my pillow, all while signing papers to profit from my grave. My chest tightened, the pain sharper than any scalpel. Clara leaned forward, her therapist's gaze piercing. "They can't touch you now, Henry. You're untouchable." But the fortress shook with another blow, a text from Paul, the retired FBI agent. "Henry, Emily's lawyer just filed a motion to declare you incompetent. They're claiming dementia, using doctored medical records. The audacity was a gut punch, a calculated strike to strip me of my rights. They weren't just after my money, they wanted my mind, my freedom, my name." I pictured Derek laughing, his South Side swagger, as he bragged about outsmarting me. The shame burned hotter than my rage, whispering that I'd let this happen, that my trust had been my downfall. I'd been a titan in boardrooms, but at home, I'd been a fool, blinded by love. Then came the next shock, a call from Sarah, Tom's paralegal. "Henry, we found a fake lease agreement, your brownstone, rented out to a shell company for $2 million a year, signed by Vince and Lena. $2 million. The betrayal was a tidal wave, drowning me in grief and fury. They'd turned my home into a cash machine, leasing it to ghosts while I lived in their guest room, believing their lies. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the truth was clear. They'd never seen me as family, only as a vault to crack. The father in me mourned the daughter who'd once called me her hero. The fighter in me saw a criminal who'd weaponized my love. The door swung open, and in stormed Tony, Emily's cousin and a low-life bar owner who'd always hovered around her schemes. His presence was a jolt, another cog in their machine. He strode in, reeking of cheap cologne and arrogance, his voice pure Chicago street venom. "Yo, Henry, you think you're some big shot, huh? Selling the house, freezing the cash? You're a pathetic old man clutching your billions like a damn hoarder. Keep this up, and we'll make sure you're locked in a nut house, you crazy bastard." His words were a blade, cutting through the fragile hope I'd held for family. Tony, who I'd bailed out of jail twice, was now their enforcer, sent to intimidate me. Margaret stood, her petite frame radiating fury. "Get out, Tony, or I'll call the cops myself." Clara stepped forward, her voice calm but lethal. "You're on private property. Leave, or you'll regret it." Tony laughed, a sharp, ugly sound, but Rachel's glare stopped him cold. "You're done, Tony. Henry's not your mark anymore." He backed off, muttering, "You'll pay, old man." But his retreat was a spark to my resolve. They were desperate, sending their foot soldiers to bully me back into submission. But I wasn't bending. I turned to Clara, "Add Tony to the case. He's in on it." Her nod was a lifeline, but the pain was unrelenting, a stone in my chest. I'd loved Tony like a son, paid for his bar when he was broke, and now he was spitting in my face. Another blow hit an ex-post from Jake, retweeted by Lena. "Henry Caldwell's a liar, abandoning his family for his billions." Attached was a stolen audio clip. My voice slurred from pain meds, manipulated to sound confused. The public shaming was a calculated strike, designed to break me. I wanted to hide, to disappear, but Paul's voice cut through. "They're panicking, Henry. This is their last play." His words were true, but they didn't quiet the storm inside. I was a man divided, half grieving the family I'd lost, half burning to reclaim my life. The guilt was a relentless tide, whispering that I'd failed as a father, that my wealth had poisoned them. Rachel handed me a photo, an old one of me and Emily at her college graduation, her smile bright and mine prouder. "This is who you are, Henry," she said. "Not their lies." The photo was a knife, twisting deeper. I'd given her everything, education, homes, love, and she'd turned it into a weapon. But as I looked at Clara, Margaret, Paul, Rachel, their faces a circle of loyalty, I felt the weight lift, not gone but lighter. "Tell Mike to dig into the lease," I said, my voice steady despite the ache, "and tell Tom to file for a restraining order against Tony." The room was quiet, but the air crackled with resolve. Emily, Derek, Jake, Vince, Lena, Tony, they'd gambled on my silence, my love, my weakness. They'd lost. I wasn't just fighting for my money. I was fighting for my truth. And this time, I'd locked the gate. The Evanston townhouse was a sanctuary, but its warmth couldn't shield me from the icy grip of betrayal that tightened with every new revelation. The forged insurance policy, the fake lease, Tony's venomous threats, the doctored medical records, each was a dagger, plunging deeper into the heart. I'd already stitched back together after surgery. Emily, Jake, Derek, Vince, Lena, Tony, they'd plundered $20 million, a $7 million brownstone, and my trust, turning my love into a weapon to wield against me. I sat at Clara's oak table, my notebook open, its pages a map of their deceit, each entry a scar. My hands trembled, not with fear but with a fire that was growing, fueled by the realization that I wasn't just fighting for my fortune, I was fighting for my identity, my right to exist beyond their greed. Rachel poured me a fresh cup of tea, her social worker's empathy, a quiet anchor. "Henry, every line you write is a step toward freedom," she said, her voice steady. But freedom felt like a distant shore, and I was drowning in the undertow of grief and rage. I was a man divided, half the father who'd saved Emily's drawings in a scrapbook, half the warrior who saw her now as a thief who'd sold my legacy for cash. The shame was a relentless beast, clawing at me, whispering that I'd built this prison by trusting too much, loving too blindly. I'd given them my accounts, my home, my heart, only to find they'd forged a cage around me, locking me out of my own life. Margaret glanced at my notebook, her eyes fierce. "This is your evidence, Henry. It's your sword." But before I could respond, my phone buzzed a new voicemail from Derek, his voice dripping with Southside venom. I played it, bracing for the blow. "Yo, Henry, you think you're some kind of kingpin, huh? Filing lawsuits, snitching to the cops? You're a pathetic old fool, clutching your billions like a damn miser. Keep this up, and we'll make sure the whole city knows you're a crazy bastard who lost his mind." The threat was a punch, but what gutted me was Jake's voice in the background, lazy and cruel. "Yeah, Grandpa, you're toast. Nobody's gonna believe you over us." Jake, the boy I'd taught to tie a tie, was now cheering for my destruction. The pain was a physical thing, a stone crushing my chest, heavier than any surgery. Clara leaned forward, her therapist's gaze cutting through my fog. "They're desperate, Henry. You're unraveling their game." But desperation didn't soften the blow. It sharpened it. They'd planned this for years, exploiting my recovery, my trust, my love. The guilt was a tidal wave, drowning me in questions. Had I spoiled them with my wealth? Had I failed to teach them honor? Or had they always been waiting, plotting to bleed me dry? Then came the first shock, an email from Mike Sullivan, the detective. "Henry, we found a forged deed. Transfer your Michigan lake house. Signed over to a shell company controlled by Lena. It's worth $3 million. They tried to sell it last week. $3 million. The betrayal was a sledgehammer, shattering the memories of summer barbecues, of Emily's laughter echoing across the lake. They'd turned my sanctuary into a cash grab, all while I trusted them to care for me." My breath hitched, and Margaret grabbed my hand. "They can't take your fight, Henry." But the fight was tested by another blow, a text from Sarah, Tom's paralegal. "Henry, we found a fake trust fund in your name, $9 million, diverted to an account linked to Tony and Vince. It's fraud, and we're flagging it. $9 million. The audacity was a gut punch, another layer of deceit. They'd used my name to build a criminal empire, all while I lay in their guest room, believing their lies. I pictured Tony at my charity dinners, grinning as he sipped my whiskey, plotting to steal my legacy. The shame burned hotter than my rage, whispering that I'd been a fool, that my love had been my downfall. The door opened, and in walked Lisa, a former colleague from my banking days, now a forensic accountant Tom had brought in. Her sharp eyes and no-nonsense demeanor were a lifeline, another ally in this war. "Henry," she said, sliding a folder across the table, "I've traced the money. They've been laundering it through offshore accounts, using your name to dodge taxes. We've got proof emails, signatures, even a voice recording of Derek bragging about it." Her words were a spark, but they also stung, reminding me how deeply I'd been betrayed. Derek, who I'd mentored, who I'd welcomed into my family, was now a kingpin in their scheme. I wanted to scream, to demand why, but the answer was clear. They didn't love me. They loved my millions. Then came another shock, a call from Paul, the retired FBI agent. "Henry, Emily's team just leaked a fake medical report to the press, claiming you're delusional. It's on X, going viral. The public shaming was a calculated strike, designed to break me. I opened the app, and there it was, a post from Lena, retweeted by thousands. Henry Caldwell's lost it. Senile billionaire attacks his own family. Attached was a forged doctor's note, my name smeared in black and white. The humiliation was a blade, cutting through my pride. I'd been a titan in Chicago, and now they were painting me as a madman. The father in me wanted to hide, to beg for Emily's forgiveness. The fighter in me wanted to burn their lies to ash. Before I could process it, another blow hit an email from Mrs. Larson, my neighbor, now clearly in Emily's pocket. Henry, I found a letter in my mailbox signed by you, giving Emily power of attorney. Why are you fighting her? The letter was a fake, another forgery, but the betrayal was a tidal wave. Even my neighbors, people I'd shared beers with, were turning against me, swayed by Emily's lies. The isolation was suffocating, a reminder of how thoroughly she'd cut me off from my world. Lisa handed me a pen. Sign these, Henry. Financial protection orders, restraining orders against Tony and Derek. We're locking them out. Her voice was steady, but my hands shook as I signed, each stroke a severance from the family I'd loved. The guilt was relentless, whispering that I'd failed as a father, that my wealth had poisoned them. But as I looked at Clara, Margaret, Rachel, Paul, Lisa, their faces, a circle of loyalty, I felt the weight lift, not gone but lighter. Tell Mike to add the fake deed to the case, I said, my voice steady despite the ache. And tell Tom to sue for defamation. The room was quiet, but the air crackled with resolve. Emily, Derek, Jake, Vince, Lena, Tony, they'd gambled on my silence, my love, my weakness. They'd lost. I wasn't just reclaiming my money. I was reclaiming my power, and this time, I'd seal the vault. The Evanston townhouse was a fortress of resolve, but its walls couldn't shield me from the relentless storm of betrayal that raged outside. The forged deed to my Michigan lake house, the fake trust fund, the leaked medical report, the fraudulent power of attorney, each was a fresh wound, carving deeper into a heart already scarred by surgery and sorrow. Emily, Derek, Jake, Vince, Lena, Tony, they'd plundered my $20 million fortune, turned my $7 million brownstone into a cash machine, and smeared my name across Chicago's social media with lies of senility and greed. I sat at Clara's oak table, my notebook, a battlefield of documented betrayals, each entry a brick in the wall I was building against them. My hands trembled, not with fear, but with a fire that burned hotter with every lie exposed. I wasn't just fighting for my money. I was fighting for my truth, my right to be Henry Caldwell, not their pawn. Lisa, the forensic accountant, glanced at my notebook, her sharp eyes gleaming with purpose. Henry, this is airtight. They can't outrun the truth. Her words were a spark, but they couldn't quiet the war inside me. I was torn, half the father who'd framed Emily's college diploma, half the warrior who saw her now as a criminal who'd weaponized my love. The shame was a relentless tide, whispering that I'd enabled this heist, that my wealth had turned my daughter into a monster. I'd given her my accounts, my trust, my heart, only to find she'd forged a noose around my life. Every memory, her hugs after my heart surgery, Jake's laughter at our fishing trips was now a lie, a prop in their calculated betrayal. Rachel set a glass of water before me, her social worker's empathy, a quiet anchor. You're stronger than their lies, Henry. But strength felt like a distant dream when my phone buzzed a new video message from Emily, her face twisted with Chicago street venom. I braced myself and played it, her voice slicing through the quiet room. Yo, Henry, you think you're slick, huh? Hiding in some suburban hole, selling my house? You're a washed-up old bastard, clinging to your billions like a damn leech. Keep this up, and I'll make sure every news outlet in Chicago knows you're a nutcase who abandoned his family. Her words were a blade, cutting through the fragile hope I'd held for reconciliation. Derek's voice chimed in, oily and cruel. Yeah, old man, you're done. We've got the press, the lawyers, the whole damn city. You're gonna crash hard, you senile prick. I ended the video, my heart pounding, not just from anger, but from the crushing weight of betrayal. Emily, the girl I'd taught to dream big, was now orchestrating a public execution of my reputation. The pain was a physical thing, a vice squeezing my chest, heavier than any surgery scar. Clara knelt beside me, her therapist's voice steady. They're losing, Henry. That's why they're screaming. But losing or not, their words burned. Each insult a reminder of how thoroughly they'd erased me from their hearts. The guilt was a relentless storm, whispering that I'd failed as a father, that my millions had poisoned their souls. Then came the first shock, an email from Mike Sullivan, the detective. Henry, we found a fake stock transfer, $6 million in your company shares, moved to an account linked to Jake and Tony. It's fraud, and we've frozen it. $6 million. The betrayal was a sledgehammer, shattering memories of Jake's wide-eyed awe at my office, where I'd let him play with my desk phone. He'd been planning this, using my login to steal my legacy while I bought him gaming consoles. My breath caught, and Margaret grabbed my hand. They can't break you, Henry. You're building something stronger. But the fortress shook with another blow, a text from Paul, the retired FBI agent. Henry, Lena just filed a defamation lawsuit against you, claiming you slandered her on X. It's a sham, but they're trying to tie you up in court. The audacity was a gut punch, another layer of deceit. Lena, who I'd treated to dinners at my country club, was now suing me, twisting my fight for justice into a weapon. I pictured her smirking, sipping my wine, plotting this with Emily. The shame burned hotter than my rage, whispering that I'd been a fool, that my trust had been my downfall. The door opened, and in walked Grace, a retired journalist and Clara's friend, her sharp wit and dogged integrity, a new weapon in our arsenal. Henry, she said, tossing a USB drive onto the table. I've got contacts at the Tribune. They're ready to run a story exposing Emily's fraud, but we need your go-ahead. Her words were a lifeline, but they also stung, forcing me to face the reality of dragging my daughter's name through the mud. The father in me wanted to protect her, to believe in one last chance. The fighter in me knew she'd left me no choice. I nodded, my voice barely a whisper. Do it. Then came another shock, an ex-post from Vince, retweeted by thousands. Henry Caldwell's a fraud, stole millions from his own family. Attached was a forged bank statement, my name tied to fake transactions. The public shaming was a calculated strike, designed to bury me. I wanted to hide, to disappear. But Grace's voice cut through. This is their panic, Henry. Let's hit back with the truth. Her words ignited a spark, but the pain was unrelenting, a stone in my chest. I'd given Vince a job, a second chance, and he'd repaid me with lies. Before I could process it, another blow hit a call from Sarah. Henry, we found a hidden wire transfer, $8 million, sent to a shell company in Derek's name, using your signature. It's blocked, but they're escalating. $8 million. The betrayal was a tidal wave, drowning me in grief and fury. Derek, who I'd mentored, who I'd welcomed as a son, was now a mastermind in their heist. I pictured him at my gala dinners, shaking hands with my partners, all while plotting to steal my life. The guilt was a relentless tide, whispering that I'd failed as a father, that my wealth had corrupted them. Lisa handed me a legal pad. Write their names, Henry. Every one of them. It's your declaration of war. I scrawled their names, Emily, Derek, Jake, Vince, Lena, Tony, each letter a severance from the family I'd loved. The room was quiet, but the air crackled with resolve. Tell Mike to add the stock transfer to the case, I said, my voice steady despite the ache. And tell Grace to run the story. No mercy. As Clara, Margaret, Rachel, Paul, Lisa, and Grace nodded, I felt the weight lift, not gone but lighter. They'd gambled on my silence, my love, my weakness. They'd lost. I wasn't just fighting for my money, I was fighting for my name, and this time, I'd slam the door shut. The Evanston townhouse, with its lavender calm and sturdy walls, stood as my last bastion, but the storm of betrayal roared louder than ever. The forged stock transfers, the fake charity, the fraudulent lawsuit, the doctored medical reports, each was a fresh wound, tearing deeper into a heart already frayed by surgery and sorrow. Emily, Derek, Jake, Vince, Lena, Tony, they'd plundered my $20 million fortune, turned my $7 million brownstone into a criminal enterprise, and smeared my name across Chicago with lies of madness and greed. I sat in Clara's living room, my notebook, a war-torn ledger of their deceit, each page a testament to my awakening. My hands shook, not with fear but with a fire that burned brighter with every exposed lie. I wasn't just fighting for my wealth. I was fighting for my existence, my right to be Henry Caldwell, not their puppet. Grace, the retired journalist, set a mug of coffee before me, her sharp eyes glinting with resolve. Henry, the Tribune story goes live tomorrow. They'll be exposed. Her words were a lifeline, but they couldn't quiet the tempest inside. I was a man split half the father who'd tucked Emily into bed, half the warrior who saw her now as a thief who'd sold my soul for millions. The shame was a relentless shadow, whispering that I'd enabled this betrayal, that my generosity had bred their greed. I'd given them my trust, my legacy, my love, only to find they'd forged a guillotine to sever me from my life. Every memory, Emily's smile at our Christmas parties, Jake's excitement over my old baseball cards was now a lie, a prop in their ruthless scheme. Margaret glanced at me, her voice steady. "You're untouchable now, Henry. They can't reach you here." But as she spoke, the doorbell rang, sharp and jarring, like a gunshot in the quiet. Clara checked the security camera, her face tightening. "It's Emily and Derek. They're at the gate." My heart lurched, not with fear, but with a raw, aching grief. I wanted to face them, to see if any trace of my daughter remained, but I also wanted to stay hidden, to protect the fragile strength I'd rebuilt. Rachel stood, her social worker's empathy replaced by steel. "Let them see you strong, Henry. Don't give them the stage." I nodded, moving to the window overlooking the front gate. There they were, Emily, her face twisted with fury, and Derek, his Rolex glinting under the streetlights, both pacing like caged predators. Clara opened the intercom, and Emily's voice erupted. Pure Chicago street venom. "Yo, Henry, you think you can hide, you old bastard? Freezing my money, selling my house? You're a pathetic has-been, clutching your billions like a damn coward. Come out, or I'll burn this whole place down." Her words were a sledgehammer, shattering the last hope I'd held for her. Derek chimed in, his voice oily and cruel. "Yeah, old man, you're done. Keep this up, and we'll drag you through every court in Illinois, you senile prick." The pain was a physical thing, a vice crushing my chest, heavier than any surgery scar. I wanted to scream, to beg for the daughter I'd loved, but the truth was clear. She was gone, replaced by this stranger who'd stolen my life. Lisa, the forensic accountant, grabbed my arm. "Don't answer, Henry. Let security handle it." But before I could respond, the first shock hit a text from Mike Sullivan, the detective. "Henry, we just caught Emily trying to access your offshore trust. $12 million, nearly drained. It's frozen, but she used a forged signature." 12 million. The betrayal was a tidal wave, drowning me in grief and fury. I pictured Emily at her laptop, smirking as she typed, all while I trusted her to care for me. Then came another blow, an ex-post from Jake, retweeted by thousands. "Henry Caldwell's a monster, stealing from his own family." Attached was a fake email, supposedly from me, disowning them with cruel words I'd never written. The public shaming was a calculated strike, designed to break me. My hands shook, and Paul, the retired FBI agent, stepped forward. "They're desperate, Henry. This is their last gasp." But desperation didn't soften the pain. It sharpened it. Jake, who I'd taught to drive, was now forging my words to paint me as the villain. The guilt was a relentless tide, whispering that I'd failed as a grandfather, that my wealth had corrupted him. The gate buzzed again, and Clara's security system lit up. Tony had joined Emily and Derek, his bar owner swagger unmistakable. He shouted into the intercom, his voice pure street venom. "Yo, Henry, you think you're tough, huh? Hiding behind your rich friends? You're a washed-up old fool, and we'll make sure everyone knows it. Give us the cash, or we'll torch your name, you greedy bastard." His words were a blade, cutting through the fragile hope I'd held for family. Tony, who I'd bailed out of debt, was now their attack dog, sent to bully me into submission. Rachel glared at the screen. "They're done, Henry. Let them scream." But another shock hit a call from Sarah. "Henry, we found a fake mortgage on your investment properties, $15 million, signed by Derek and Lena. It's fraud, and we're reporting it." 15 million. The betrayal was a gut punch, another layer of deceit. They'd mortgaged my entire portfolio, properties I'd built over decades, while I lay in their guest room, believing their lies. I pictured Derek at my gala dinners, shaking hands with my partners, all while plotting to steal my empire. The shame burned hotter than my rage, whispering that I'd been a fool, that my trust had been my downfall. Grace handed me a laptop. "Henry, the Tribune story is ready. It names them all: Emily, Derek, Jake, Vince, Lena, Tony. We just need your word." Her words were a lifeline, but they also forced me to face the reality of exposing my family to the world. The father in me wanted to protect them, to believe in one last chance. The fighter in me knew they'd left me no choice. I nodded, my voice steady despite the ache. "Run it." Then came another blow, an email from Mrs. Larson, my neighbor, now fully in Emily's camp. "Henry, I saw you on X. How could you lie about your own daughter?" The message was a knife, twisting deeper. Even my community, people I'd shared block parties with, were turning against me, swayed by their lies. The isolation was suffocating, a reminder of how thoroughly they'd cut me off. I turned to Clara, my resolve hardening. Tell Mike to add the mortgage to the case, and tell Grace to name every single one of them in the story. The room was quiet, but the air crackled with resolve. Emily, Derek, Jake, Vince, Lena, Tony, they'd gambled on my silence, my love, my weakness. They'd lost. I wasn't just standing my ground. I was drawing a line in the sand, and this time, I'd locked the gate. The Evanston townhouse stood as my fortress, its quiet strength, a stark contrast to the chaos of betrayal raging beyond its walls. The fake mortgage, the forged email, the viral lies, the attempt to drain $12 million each was a fresh scar, etched deeper into a heart already battered by surgery and sorrow. Emily, Derek, Jake, Vince, Lena, Tony, they'd ransacked my $20 million fortune, turned my $7 million brownstone into their personal ATM, and smeared my name with accusations of madness. I sat at Clara's oak table, my notebook, a war-torn chronicle of their deceit, each line a brick in the wall I'd built against them. My hands trembled, not with fear, but with a fire that burned brighter with every exposed lie. I wasn't just fighting for my wealth, I was fighting for my truth, my right to be Henry Caldwell, not their prey. Rachel placed a tray of fresh cookies on the table, her social worker's warmth a quiet anchor. Henry, you're not their victim anymore. You're their reckoning. Her words sparked something, but they couldn't silence the storm inside. I was a man torn, half the father who'd saved Emily's childhood drawings, half the warrior who saw her now as a criminal who'd sold my soul for millions. The shame was a relentless tide, whispering that I'd enabled this betrayal, that my generosity had bred their greed. I'd given them my trust, my legacy, my heart, only to find they'd forged a cage to trap me. Every memory, Emily's laughter at our summer picnics, Jake's awe at my vintage watch, was now a lie, a prop in their ruthless heist. As I sipped my coffee, the doorbell chimed softly, and Clara checked the security feed. Her face tightened. It's a delivery. An envelope. Hand addressed. My heart lurched, a mix of dread and curiosity. I knew that handwriting, Emily's, elegant but sharp, like a blade disguised as a pen. Clara brought it in, and I stared at the ivory envelope, its weight heavier than paper. It was her last play, a plea or a trap, and I wasn't sure I could face either. Margaret's eyes met mine. You don't have to open it, Henry. You owe her nothing. But the father in me, the one who'd once believed in second chances, hesitated. Could there be remorse? Could there be a flicker of the daughter I'd loved? I opened it, my hands shaking. The first word, Dad, hit like a punch, not with warmth but with manipulation. The letter was a masterclass in deception, crocodile tears about misunderstandings, claims that she was struggling with bills, that Jake's future was at stake. Then came the ask, buried in fake regret. We need $10 million, Dad, to save the house, to keep us afloat. $10 million. The audacity was a sledgehammer, shattering any hope of sincerity. I pictured Emily writing this, her manicured nails tapping the desk, smirking as she crafted her bait. The pain was physical, a stone crushing my chest, heavier than any surgery scar. She wasn't sorry. She was fishing, and I was still her mark. Then came the first shock. Tucked inside the envelope was a check, torn at the corner, drawn from my account for $5 million, signed with my name but not my hand. A forgery, blatant and bold, with a memo. Family loan. The betrayal was a tidal wave, drowning me in grief and fury. They hadn't just asked for my money, they'd forged my signature, again, to steal it. I pictured Derek laughing, his South Side swagger as he planned this with Emily. The shame burned hotter than my rage, whispering that I'd been a fool, that my love had been my downfall. Before I could process it, my phone buzzed a voicemail from Lena, her voice pure Chicago street venom. I played it, bracing for the blow. Yo, Henry, you think you're smart, huh? Ignoring Emily's letter? You're a greedy old bastard hoarding your billions while we're drowning. Keep this up, and I'll make sure every tabloid in Chicago knows you're a heartless prick who ditched his family. Her words were a blade, cutting through the fragile hope I'd held for redemption. Lena, who I'd treated to vacations, was now their mouthpiece, spitting lies to break me. Clara knelt beside me, her therapist's voice steady. She's desperate, Henry. You're winning. But winning felt like losing when another shock hit a text from Mike Sullivan, the detective. Henry, we found a fake business deal, $7 million, funneled through a shell company tied to Tony and Vince, using your name. It's fraud, and we're reporting it. $7 million. The betrayal was a gut punch. Another layer of deceit. They'd used my reputation to broker deals, all while I trusted them to care for me. I pictured Tony at my charity galas, shaking hands with my partners, plotting this scheme. The guilt was a relentless tide, whispering that I'd failed as a father, that my wealth had poisoned them. The door opened, and in walked Daniel, a retired judge and Clara's mentor, his stern face etched with integrity. He was another ally, brought in to strengthen our case. "Henry," he said, setting a legal folder on the table, "we've drafted a cease and desist letter for Lena's defamation. Sign it, and we'll shut her down." His words were a lifeline, but they forced me to face the reality of silencing my daughter's allies. The father in me wanted to protect them, to believe in one last chance. The fighter in me knew they'd left me no choice. Then came another blow, an ex-post from Derek, retweeted by thousands. "Henry Caldwell's a liar, abandoning his family for his billions." Attached was a fake contract, supposedly signed by me, cutting them off. The public shaming was a calculated strike, designed to bury me. I wanted to hide, to disappear, but Grace's voice cut through. "This is their panic, Henry. The Tribune story drops tomorrow. They're done." Her words ignited a spark, but the pain was unrelenting, a stone in my chest. I'd given Derek a family, a future, and he'd repaid me with lies. I folded Emily's letter and slid it into the shredder, the whir of blades a quiet victory. I didn't need her words, her lies, her bait. I turned to Daniel. "Send the cease and desist, and tell Mike to add the business deal to the case." The room was quiet, but the air crackled with resolve. Emily, Derek, Jake, Vince, Lena, Tony, they'd gambled on my silence, my love, my weakness. They'd lost. I wasn't just shredding their lies. I was shredding their hold on me, and this time I'd bolt the door. The Evanston townhouse, with its lavender warmth and steadfast walls, was my sanctuary, but the storm of betrayal outside roared like a Chicago winter gale. The forged check, the fake business deal, Lena's venomous threats, the viral lies painting me as a monster, each was a fresh wound, slicing deeper into a heart already scarred by surgery and sorrow. Emily, Derek, Jake, Vince, Lena, Tony. They'd plundered my $20 million fortune, turned my $7 million brownstone into their personal vault, and smeared my name with accusations of madness. I stood at Clara's window, staring at the quiet street. My notebook, a battlefield of their deceit. Each entry, a brick in the fortress I'd built against them. My hands no longer trembled, not with fear, but with a fire that burned brighter than ever. I wasn't just fighting for my wealth. I was fighting for my soul, my right to be Henry Caldwell, not their puppet. Grace set a newspaper on the table, the Tribune's headline screaming, "Chicago billionaire betrayed, family's fraud exposed." Her journalist's eyes gleamed with triumph. "Henry, they're done, the world knows." But the victory was bittersweet, a knife twisting in my chest. I was a man torn, half the father who'd carried Emily on his shoulders at Navy Pier, half the warrior who saw her now as a criminal who'd sold my legacy for millions. The shame was a relentless shadow, whispering that my generosity had bred their greed, that my love had forged their weapons. Every memory, Emily's giggles at our holiday feasts, Jake's awe at my vintage car, was now a lie, a prop in their ruthless scheme. The knowledge of their betrayal was a weight, but it was also knowledge that fueled my resolve, a lesson in the fragility of trust. Rachel's voice cut through, her social worker's empathy, a quiet anchor. "Henry, you've taught us a lesson in strength. You're rewriting your story." But rewriting meant erasing the family I'd loved. And the pain was physical, a stone crushing my chest, heavier than any surgery scar. Then came the first shock, a call from Mike Sullivan, the detective. "Henry, we caught a fake art deal, $10 million in your collection, sold to a shell company tied to Derek and Tony. It's fraud, and we've seized the assets." 10 million. The betrayal was a sledgehammer, shattering memories of Derek admiring my Rothko, his fake awe a mask for theft. I pictured him at my gallery openings, shaking hands, plotting to steal my treasures. The knowledge of their greed was a lesson in vigilance, a reminder that love without scrutiny is a trap. Before I could process it, another blow hit an ex-post from Emily, retweeted by thousands. "Henry Caldwell's a fraud, stole our future." Attached was a doctored video, my voice manipulated to sound cruel, disowning them. The public shaming was a calculated strike, designed to break me. Clara knelt beside me, her therapist's voice steady. "They're panicking, Henry. This knowledge means you're winning." But winning felt like losing when the guilt was a relentless tide, whispering that I'd failed as a father, that my wealth had poisoned them. The education of this betrayal was brutal, teaching me that family isn't always blood, it's trust, and they'd shattered mine. The doorbell rang, sharp and jarring. Paul checked the security feed, his FBI-trained eyes narrowing. It's Jake and Lena at the gate. My heart lurched, not with fear but with a raw, aching grief. I moved to the window, watching them pace. Jake slouched defiant, Lena's face twisted with fury. Clara opened the intercom, and Lena's voice erupted, pure Chicago street venom. Yo, Henry, you think you're hot shit, huh? Running to the press, ruining our lives? You're a washed-up old bastard, hoarding your billions like a damn vulture. Come out, or we'll make you regret it. Her words were a blade, cutting through the fragile hope I'd held for Jake. He chimed in, his voice lazy and cruel. Yeah, Grandpa, you're done. Keep this up and we'll bury you, you senile prick. The pain was a vice, squeezing my chest. Jake, who I'd taught to fish, was now their attack dog, spitting lies to break me. Lisa, the forensic accountant, grabbed my arm. Don't answer, Henry. Let security handle it. But another shock hit a text from Sarah, Tom's paralegal. Henry, we found a fake patent deal, $8 million, tied to Vince and Emily, using your name. It's fraud, and we're reporting it. $8 million. The betrayal was a tidal wave, drowning me in grief and fury. They'd used my knowledge, my legacy, to broker fake deals, all while I trusted them. The education was clear. Trust without verification is a death sentence. Then came another blow, a call from Daniel, the retired judge. Henry, Emily's lawyer just filed a countersuit, claiming you stole their inheritance. It's baseless, but they're dragging it out. The audacity was a gut punch, another layer of deceit. They weren't just stealing, they were rewriting history, painting me as the thief. The lesson was harsh, an education in the depths of greed. I pictured Emily at my charity galas, smiling as she planned this. The guilt was relentless, whispering that I'd failed, that my wealth had corrupted them. But as I looked at Clara, Margaret, Rachel, Paul, Lisa, Grace, Daniel, their faces, a circle of loyalty, I felt the weight lift, not gone, but lighter. Grace handed me a phone. Henry, the Tribune wants a quote for the follow-up story. What do you say? I paused, the father in me wanting to protect Emily, to believe in one last chance. The fighter in me knew she'd left me no choice. Tell them, I said, my voice steady, Henry Caldwell is taking back his life, and those who betrayed him will face justice. The room was quiet, but the air crackled with resolve. I turned to Daniel. File the patent fraud, and tell Mike to add the countersuit to the case. They nodded, and I felt the fire grow. Emily, Derek, Jake, Vince, Lena, Tony, they'd gambled on my silence, my love, my weakness. They'd lost. This story isn't just mine, it's a lesson in resilience, a knowledge that betrayal doesn't define you, but your response does. It's an education in the value of loyalty, of standing tall against those who'd tear you down. To my audience, what does this story stir in you? How does it echo in your own lives, where trust has been tested, where love has been weaponized? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear the knowledge from your hearts. And if this tale of betrayal and redemption moved you, hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel, RevengeX, for more gripping stories every day. Like, share, and join us to uncover the lessons of life. Wishing you all health, joy, and peace every day. Farewell and see you in the next video. Stay strong, stay educated, and keep your health first.